Hey there, it's Mike Langford. Welcome to another episode of the SoFin Podcast, part of the FinServe Marketing Podcast Network. This week on the show, I have Brendan Lee Young, the CEO and one of the co-founders of Passiv with me. Turns out he's also one of the Brendans at Passiv. Co-founder Brendan Wood, also another Brendan tucked down in there somewhere, and I'm sure they're on the hunt for more Brendans. We did cover the concept of, do you need to be named Brendan, or does it help your chances to get employed at Passiv if you're named Brendan? You'll have to listen to the pod to get the answer to that. But let me tell you something. If your name is Brendan, you like investing, and you know how to code and stuff, you might want to reach out to Brendan Lee Young. See if you can get a job at Passiv. Anyway, I love this startup. I love the story. As you'll hear, I'm kind of just geeking out on it when we're talking. It's one of the most classic lean startup stories I've heard in a very long time. The process that the Brendans went through to ideate on what their solution should be, to test it in the marketplace to get people using it, and then to monetize the solution is just absolutely almost textbook lean startup stuff. And I'm not sure that they were really thinking of it that way when they started the business, but here we are, billions of dollars later of assets being managed through Passiv. It's rocking. So you're going to absolutely love this episode of the show. Before we get to the conversation with Brendan, make sure you check out some of the other podcasts on the network, such as the Modern Financial Advisor podcast, where recently we had the Elevate CPA group gents on again to talk about why some RIA firm purchases fail and others flourish. Now, the conversation is obviously about RIA firm M&A deals or independent financial advisor M&A deals, but everything we cover in that episode is applicable to any other type of M&A. So if you're thinking about buying a business or selling a business, you're going to want to check out that episode because these guys have been through hundreds collectively, hundreds of M&A deals, and they know what it takes to make sure that you do your due diligence on the front end to make sure it's a good deal. And then you do the stuff you need to do after acquisition, the post-acquisition stuff to make sure the deal succeeds. So check out that episode. You can find any of our podcasts on Apple Podcasts, Spotify. Amazon now has a podcast platform, or YouTube. Just about everything we're doing now, we're also publishing on YouTube. So if you like to watch video, and who wouldn't? I mean, really. Anyways, you get to see all the handsome, it's just there. Anyway, check it out on YouTube as well. If you are looking for the podcast that we're doing, finservemarketing.com/podcast. You'll find the tiles there. We've got a couple of other ones that are in stealth mode that are going to be launching soon. You're going to love those as well. I know you're going to love those. Some really exciting stuff. So keep checking that website page. All right, let's get to our conversation with Brendan Lee Young of Passiv. Brendan Lee Young. So fantastic to have you on the show, buddy. Welcome to the SoFin Podcast.
Man, thanks so much for having me. This is going to be fun. Really excited to be here, talk shop. It's some crazy times we live in. So yeah, always good to connect.
To say the least, right? It's really been fascinating to me because, during this pandemic time, I've talked to more people like in different countries around the world, like Australia, Europe, Canada, than I ever do on a normal basis. It's been actually pretty cool to just get to do some face-to-face with people like thousands of miles away.
Yeah, I think it's wild. It's wild how humans are so resilient and we can adapt and we can still have life as normal as it can be given the situation. So yeah, I think it's great.
Yeah, it's great.
Well, it's great that we can adapt.
Yeah, I know what you mean. It is interesting. And you feel sometimes a tiny bit guilty if you or uncomfortable pointing out that there have been some positives to your own life or to your business as a result of a pandemic, because other people are suffering for sure. But there have been some positives, right? Like I was just saying, we're talking to people from different parts of the world. On our business end, the podcast and video production end has really taken off just as a outlet of, or a result of, of the pandemic. People are needing this more and coming to realize like, yeah, this is good stuff. We should be recording and putting out video. So really, really cool. You lucked out, by the way, today. I had my second Pfizer shot yesterday. So winner over here, double vax. Nice. I will tell you though, I felt a little junky this morning. I was getting a little worried. I didn't feel like some people said they're wiped out. I wasn't really wiped out, but I was like, I don't know. Like, I find I hydrated like crazy. I think I'm up to like 8 gallons of water this morning. It feels like.
Well, you know what? I'm a bit jealous because we're based in New Brunswick, Canada, and so we don't have as many cases of COVID as compared to other parts of Canada, and so I can't tell you when I'm going to get my vaccine. There are plans to release it and give it to the population, but I just it's not my time yet.
Wow. Well, I will tell you when you do get it. If you get the Pfizer one, I don't know about the others. The thing, if you ever get a flu shot, your arm does hurt, like a flu shot, but like amplify it about 10x, right? Because I guess the needle's longer and they get you like almost like in the joint. I swear to God. So like the first shot, I woke up like I felt like somebody hit me with a baseball bat, like down my upper arm. And then that, after a day or so, it was fine. But and then today it's less sore. But the previous one, I had no I didn't have any chills or feel a little feverish or whatever. Today, I felt a little kind of garbagey, right? Like felt like, I'm not sure, but all worth it, buddy. Oh, see, the next time you and I do this, we're going to do it in person. So that's the way this is going to roll. I'm excited.
Yeah, man. And you know what? I'll say this, like there are 2 things I'm afraid of: heights and needles.
Oh, really?
And every year I do not go for the flu shot. And I promise you I'm not anti-vax. Like I have immunizations and stuff like that. But if I could not get jabbed, I will avoid it. And so what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna go with like a little sleeper's mask, and I'm just gonna listen to some music and just be like, stick me, please. Anyway,
I will say, so have you ever had the flu shot?
Yeah.
Okay, so I was just gonna say, because it's not doesn't hurt that bad. Like I think the big trick is to have somebody there who's a distraction for you, right? So because my son, who's 16 now, and he's no longer afraid, but he was exactly what you're describing, like irrationally uncomfortable about getting a shot, like to the point of like his heart rate would go through the roof, and we have to like calm him down. So I used to say like, so let me run some interference for you. Why don't you look at me? We'll talk about our favorite sports team or whatever, and we're like, oh yeah, you're done, dude. He's like, oh. So that's what you need. You need to bring somebody with you, do a distraction. That's it.
That's the plan.
That's awesome. That's awesome. Well, I'm really thrilled to have you on the show here. I promise we won't talk about COVID the whole time. I can't remember who reached out to connect us. It's somebody on your team reached out to connect the 2 of us. And I love meeting, new startup founders all the time. But when you and I fired up Zoom that first time to chat, I was like, ooh, this is fascinating, right? Like I really was blown away by the process of how you started Passiv, and we're going to dive into that. But it was one of the things that is, given how much time I spend in this ecosystem, particularly the fintech startup ecosystem, you were fairly unique to the way that I've seen other fintech startups launch. And like, we got to dive into that. And so I'm looking forward to it. So I guess one of the easiest ways to kind of go into this is, I wonder if we can get maybe a 60-second elevator pitch from you for what Passiv is, so that the average listener is like, oh, I get it.
Okay, sure. So Passiv is an integrated portfolio management tool that's designed to help do-it-yourself investors invest their money and grow their wealth at online stockbrokers. And so we do a lot of things, but on a high level, here's how it works. A user would connect their brokerage account to Passiv, set up their portfolio, and specify their asset allocation. And then Passiv would show them what trades they need to place to buy and sell to keep their portfolio balanced. We do other things like helping a user monitor their performance. You can create holistic portfolios across multiple accounts. And so what we're really doing with Passiv is that we're helping people be their own household asset manager, or as I say, you can be your own robo-advisor with Passiv. Take for example, we have users that like replicate their robo-advisors portfolios right in Passiv. And that's sort of what we're trying to do. We're trying to empower folks who know what they want to do because they're financially woke, to do the things that they need to do to stay on track with their financial targets, really.
That's really, really interesting. So on the model, on the portfolios for asset allocation, just so that I understand appropriately and don't start misspeaking like a crazy man on this pod, do you have a series of recommended asset allocations that you, or is it the user or the investor come to you and say, this is what I want my asset allocation to look like. Passive, make sure this happens.
Yeah, basically. So what we're doing is essentially we're replacing the spreadsheet that a DIY investor would typically use. So the problem that you have, at least for our users, is not necessarily a knowledge problem. It's just that their broker lacks the tooling to help them do the things that they want to do. So if you think about it, traditionally online brokers, they're designed to make money off of active traders who buy and sell a lot of stock, maybe for a living or just like daily. Whereas a passive investor, they just buy a couple times a month and that's it. And so like as a broker, under the traditional way they made money, which was off of trade commissions and whatnot, all of their tooling sort of like was offered to this segment of client that is a hardcore active trader. And so and we had this problem is that like we know that the cheapest way to invest and save for retirement is using a couple of a handful of low cost exchange traded funds,
right,
and balance them. But brokers didn't really provide us with that tooling, which is why we had to build Passive to begin with. So what we're doing is just replacing that spreadsheet and doing the tactical things that DIY investors like us do every day with a spreadsheet.
You know, you're solving a problem that I've often talked about with wealth management firms and individual advisors. In terms of their value proposition, you're solving a similar value proposition for the DIY investor, and is, you know, look, most people can go out and find a portfolio, as you said, kind of find out what their risk tolerance is, find out what their timeline is, and go, okay, this is a portfolio that works for me. Most financial advisors, by the way, are working with model portfolios. They have like 6 to 8 of them. Depending on how you answer some questionnaires, that's what they go with, and that's how they're going to manage your portfolio. And sometimes a person will ask the question like, well, why would I use a financial advisor? And there's a variety of reasons. One of them is obviously to have a dispassionate person at the helm. But another one, which you're solving for this DIY segment, is time, right? It's you know, it does take time to go and rebalance. It takes effort, and you can make some mistakes too, by the way. Like, what are the consequences of fucking it up? Like,
dude, all right, for me, it was literally getting reprimanded by my boss. So picture this, right? Like, I've got a spreadsheet. It's Friday afternoon. I have to look at my spreadsheet, figure out the trades that I need to place, log into my broker, click through, place those trades, go back to my spreadsheet, update it, and my boss is sitting like one row behind me. She could literally like see what I'm doing, and I'm like, geez, like I gotta hide and place those trades.
Funny.
And I mean, I've got a 9-to-5 job that I gotta work, and I'm doing this thing because I want to achieve financial independence. And like, I can't tell my boss, hey, you know, can I get 5 minutes to go place this trade because I need to invest for my retirement. Right. And I can't place trades when the markets are closed either. So I got to do it between my working hours. So,
You're sitting in the bathroom in the stall for an extra long time, you know, you're that guy.
dude, I'm like hiding in the bathroom. And the guy next to me, he's like playing Candy Crush on his phone. And it's just like, how do I know? Because I'm hearing the noise. But he doesn't even care. He's just like, pew, pew. Anyway.
By the way, for the listeners, if you happen to be listening to this in the restroom, wear headphones, okay? Your stallmate does not need you ruining their rhythm with your sound effects from the stall next to them. So just a little, this is fascinating. You have a great story. I want to dive into it. I guess you just kind of teed it up. What type of job were you working? You don't have to say the company or anything, but what was your profession at the time when you started to realize your trading time was a problem?
Yeah, so I worked in customer success, right? So I had a portfolio of clients that I needed to manage and help and provide support to. And of course, whenever the opportunity arose, I would try to gradually upsell them with solutions that really met their needs, but also at the same time, like try to get them to get the most out of their investment with our firm. So that's sort of what my role was. And it just that's sort of what I did. So in terms of like, you work in tech. So because you work in tech, you make a bit more money than someone who works in retail, which by the way, I don't think it's fair, but hey, I can't solve society's problems.
right.
I can only solve my own. And the ones that have similar. So anyway, yeah, that was my problem, is that in between calls that I had with my clients, I'd have like about a 15-minute window to go do the things that I need to do, and that's it. So yeah, it's fun. And even though while I was working, I was always telling people, you should buy index funds, you should do ETFs. And so I think my manager at the time, even though she knew I was doing something for me that I couldn't do outside of my working hours, I think if I lapsed in my job, I might have been, getting a bit of a write-up or whatever. But she knew I was a good employee. I worked really hard. And so she didn't seem to mind. But I mean, not everyone has a great boss that is understanding to your financial independent needs.
Well, since you left and started Passiv, is she become a user?
No.
You should hit her up. You should be like, hey, just so you know, you were very inspirational to me. You should join.
Well, you know what? It's really funny because like I kind of moonlit for a while.
Okay.
So I told my boss, I was like, hey, listen, I wanna do my own thing. I wanna grow as a person. I studied entrepreneurship, and even though I was enjoying the role that I had, like my passion has always been to build something and to do something bigger. I'm from a small Caribbean island. I left my home, I left my family, friends to come to Canada to chase a dream, and that dream was being able to do my own thing. And I kind of said to her, I was like, hey, listen, like I don't want to leave my job because I like the job that I do here and I like the money and the financial security. But there's also this thing that I'm doing on the side. And so if it becomes to be a problem, please let me know. And in my mind, I knew that the minute you decide to go down the path of being an entrepreneur, you can't have your cake and eat it. You can't work 9 to 5 and then also be an entrepreneur from 6 to 12. It's not sustainable, it's not scalable, and you don't learn as much. Your learning velocity is reduced because your side hustle is part-time. Mm-hmm. And so I knew that when I mentioned it to her, there could have been a possibility that I'd be let go.
Yeah.
They didn't do that. They kept me on, and so I eventually left on good terms, but that was way after we validated that we had something that people wanted. Yeah. Because that's the thing, you want to make sure that if you're leaving a good steady job, that you're doing something that's meaningful to people and they're willing to appreciate it by paying you.
Yeah. That helps, right? Yeah. Let's get to the point, because you have a fascinating story. I mean, you mentioned that you immigrated to Canada from a Caribbean island. That Caribbean is Trinidad and Tobago, right? Which, by the way, I actually I've been to the Caribbean many times, and I've never been to Trinidad and Tobago. I last night fired up Google Maps. I'm like, I got to go get a landscape. Like, what are we talking about here? So anyways, looking at Trinidad and Tobago. So you decided to go to Canada to finish up school and to pursue some things that you thought weren't going to be you weren't going to be able to accomplish back home, right? Let's dive into your journey a little bit there, and that point in which you had that aha moment, right? Like we've probably started to tickle around the edges of it, where you're saying you're doing some of your own rebalancing and trading and so forth at work. But what was the moment where you realized, I think I have something here?
Okay, so it was 2 moments really. Maybe 3. But the first one was when I met my co-founder. So like I was a spreadsheet guy trying to keep my portfolio balanced, and I just gave up, man. I was just like, you know what? Like I don't even care about maintaining my risk profile. I'm just gonna buy whatever. And even that became a problem. And then I met my co-founder at a party, and him and I got talking because his name is Brendan and I'm Brendan, and the host was just like, hey, you're Brendan and he's Brendan. You guys are both named Brendan. You're gonna have a lot in common. Well, it turned out we did. He was very passionate about entrepreneurship, and he could actually build things. I'm an ideas guy. I'm a talker, as you can tell. And Brendan would my business partner, he actually built things. And so he was telling me about this script that he built to help him manage his money. And I was like, man, I have that same problem too. Do you mind hooking me up? And can I get a copy of this script? And because we both had an account at the same broker, and that broker is Questrade, and they have a really nice, awesome API that allowed Brendan Wood to build the script. And so he gave me access to it, and I was like, damn, this is good. At the time, Passive just showed you the calculations, right? And so that was really helpful because I still was using my spreadsheet to figure out which of the 3 ETFs I had was undervalued, so I could allocate my money to that ETF as in accordance to my risk tolerance. And so seeing that and how easy it was, I was like, damn, this is sweet. Let's see if there are the people out there that have the same problem, because maybe it's just him and I, and like our baby's ugly and no one wants to tell us it's ugly, right? So we went to Reddit, and that's when we knew that we had something, because within the first, let's say, couple hours after posting Reddit, we had like over 100 people signing up, using the product, giving us feedback, because we had this MVP. We made it accessible via the web, and it was like, okay, well, basically, let's see if anyone else out there has the same problem. And better yet, if they do have that problem and they validate it for us, what features can we build and add that would make them comfortable enough, or get them to see value to pay us money to use the product for a long period of time? And so those were the two sort of points when I saw what he built, and then also that Reddit post with generated users, and those users gave us feedback. And the third thing was when we actually took the feedback from users, and we built our first big feature, and it was one-click trades. And so all it did was it allowed users to click a button and have the trades that were calculated actually placed in their brokerage account. And so that was like a huge like aha moment, because basically we had early users gave us feedback, and then they gave us money and they paid to get access to this feature to place trades. And I mean, it's kind of wild, because you're talking about giving some random dudes from New Brunswick access to your brokerage account to place trades in there with a really crappy website. Like, our website was really awful. I'm sorry, Brendan, if you're listening, but it was horrible. But we were just two guys, we didn't have much money or anything, so we had to be really lean. And anyway, that's sort of like the genesis. It really wasn't like one thing. It was just this series of events that led up to us saying that, okay, I could feel confident that I could quit my job and we can work full time on this thing and help people invest and take control of their financial journey.
So much to love about that story. The number one for me is, and I want to dive into like what the early Reddit thread posts were to kind of get people to test it out, because we get a fair amount of folks who are listening to the show or watching the show, who are, they're fintech entrepreneurs or want to be a fintech entrepreneur. They're kind of kicking around some ideas to, and the challenge often is how much work do you put into the idea before you go out and test it, right? That lean startup model. And I put it in our show notes here, and you guys are like kind of like the ultimate lean startup, and you kind of just explained why. Like you maybe you don't want to take that month, but for me, it's like I've never seen anybody start a business basically with a Reddit thread, getting people to do it and test it out. I've heard people wireframe things out or put it on a piece of paper and walk around to people, but you did it a little bit differently. You actually got people using something that you were already using yourselves, and that's pretty fascinating. But like I said, a lot of the audience is thinking about that. Like, all right, I have an idea. Yeah. Or we're an existing company and we want to test a new product, and you found a way to do it, right? So I guess let's start with, how did you identify the right Reddit thread? Is this something you created the community, or were you already a member of the community? And then how'd you go about inviting people to do it? Kind of like letting them know, hey, we've got this thing. Like, what was the invite like?
Okay. So, all right. So there's this popular subreddit called Personal Finance Canada. And so there's a model portfolio called the Canadian Couch Potato Portfolio that that is very popular on that subreddit, and you always see people posting about it. And we we follow that model portfolio, and so we were in a community of like-minded individuals doing the things that people like us were doing, i.e., using this model portfolio to invest. And so for us, it was a logical extension to assume that if we follow this model portfolio and we know there are other people following this model portfolio, they probably have the same problem that we do. So it's worth a shot at trying to get this product in front of these people and get their feedback. Now, the challenge is anyone that posts on Reddit doesn't necessarily get their posts to say, like, the mods can remove your posts and all that stuff. So the key thing for us was that it was free. We asked the mods for permission. So we were really nice about it. We were like, hey, we have this thing. It's a free product. We just want to try to help people. Because at the time we didn't really have enough features to say it was worth charging for. And we built it with the intention to always have a free tier, because our mission is to empower people to invest in safer retirement. So if we have a free tier that helps people at least half the way, it's better than nothing. So anyway, the mods really liked that, and they said, all right, you can post. And that's sort of the formula we used. Find a community of like-minded people with the high likelihood of having the problem that you have. Be really nice and ask the mods if you can post there. Be sure to let them know that you're not trying to monetize it because it goes against the rules.
Right.
And then be really responsive. And so with, like, I had to clear my day, and I did this during work. So I was like replying to client emails and just getting pinged on Reddit by people having questions like, how secure are you? What is an API? What is OAuth? Why should I trust you, Mr. Guy I don't know from New Brunswick? We had to be very transparent and open and willing for feedback. And so I guess the last point of it is, if you're going to post on Reddit, clear your calendar, because if this thing blows off, you want to be responsive and you want to answer people's questions right away, and that helps. And that's sort of like been part of a ethos from since back then to now. We try to respond to users' feedback. We still hang out on Reddit and try to give back. But yeah, so it's not just me. I really have to give a big shout out to the mods of that subreddit as well.
Well, I think the thing you highlighted a couple of really important things, right? I think very often when you have a new startup or a new project that you're interested in letting the world know about, and you're trying to drive traffic and users to it, you just throw up. Like, you go out and go, hey, here's this thing that's awesome, come check it out, type of thing. And to your point, like, be careful. You could get, first of all, you get dinged in the community. They might ban you or whatever, or people might just kind of almost be offended and start writing some negative crap about you just because. So you went to the moderators of the community first, right? This is their community. They've put some blood, sweat, and tears into building this community. You were a good guest, right? A good member of the community. You went and asked. I also love the fact that you admit that, like, look, this thing was rough. Like, it was not a polished product. And I think too often, and that's where I was saying, like, you kind of have that ultimate lean startup mindset, is like, too often people try to make sure it looks good because they're worried about kind of their ego, right? Of, like, somebody's gonna say, oh, it's kind of ugly, the website, or this thing's a little wonky. And, as Reid Hoffman, their LinkedIn founder, always said, like, if you're proud of what you ship too late. Right? like, just get something out there, start getting some feedback. Like, even the feedback of, like, hey, this is broken. Yeah, I've been surprised at how many people will willingly try shit out.
Yeah,
like, give it a go.
Yeah, and I think it's being customer-centric, right? Like, how do you know what you've made is valuable to someone? And if you optimize to make money right away, then you mightn't figure out some of the things you need to figure out early because you're just focused on getting money. We didn't necessarily need money. What we needed was users and feedback. And so for us, like, having a free product just just made sense to us. I still had my job. Even if this thing stayed as like a little side hobby that a couple hundred people used, we were fine with it. Like my co-founder, he he was invested in Bitcoin. Dude sold Bitcoin in 2017, and
Yeah.
he had a bit of dry powder to try this thing. And so it never really was about the money. It was really about wanting to do something that was meaningful to people and having a positive change. Because I believe if you stick true to that, you're gonna find ways to monetize. And
Yeah.
I mean, like in the early days, we didn't make a lot of money off of those early users. So like to give you an idea, like only 10% of what 100 people paid us
Okay.
back then. Like we've got thousands of users now, but like you going back to that aha moment, we must have been crazy. Maybe I was, because I quit my job first. To go do this thing just based on the validation of what 10 people willing to pay you. But that's exactly what the folks at Y Combinator and they put out their videos about like get 10 people paying you. Like we believed in that. We lapped that up. And I mean, my mom told me I was nuts. My mom was like, dude, you have an MBA, you have a good job. What are you doing? My wife was like, oh, you're gonna leave your job? Are you sure you want to do that? Anyway, yeah, it was.
That's fantastic. So now, from those early users who were using it for free, and you have, at least at the last time we chatted, I believe you said there were over $1 billion of AUA, assets under advisory, through the tool currently using Passive. Yeah, is that true?
Yeah. So it's linked to the market. When the market drops, it goes down.
Sure.
But yeah, we, as of this morning, we have about 1.1 billion in assets managed with Passive. And it's important to point out that we don't hold the assets, right? So our users hold the assets at the brokerages that we support. But it's powerful for us because it's a sign of trust. It's a sign that tells us that people trust a software company to help them manage their money for themselves. And so I think it's powerful. But it also shows that like I think the way robo advisors are, it kind of shows that maybe their model isn't the best model, because like, why should you pay someone a percentage of your net worth to put you in an index fund? Like once you become financially woke, it's like, why am I doing that? Yeah. And we'll never be a robo advisor. We will always be a software company. And that's just because it's the most efficient way to help our users. Yeah, that's just sort of how I feel about it. Software is going to eat the world.
Yeah. I love it. You mentioned that, you're a software company. You're not a robo advisor. You also mentioned that you're not actually holding the money. So you're not an RIA, as in the States, a registered investment advisor who's managing the pool of money, right? You're a software tool that executes things for the investor on their behalf and at their direction, right? What's the business model so people who are listening can kind of grok it a little bit better, like exactly how it's working?
Yeah, sure. So it's a freemium model, essentially. The user signs up, they get the calculated trades for free. There are a few other features that are gated behind a paywall. And basically, we have a 100% money back guarantee. So a user can try the elite tier and know, like, if they don't like it, they just send us an email. We give them their money back, no questions asked. So the barrier to try it is really low. But what happens is that when people start using Passive, they invest and they trade more, and their lives become easier. But it also helps the broker. The brokers that they hold their assets on, they benefit. They benefit because their clients stay engaged, they invest more, and they trade more. And so while our users pay for Passive today, for us, the end goal is to have relationships with brokerages so that they can make this tool available to their clients. So that's sort of what we do in Canada here. We've got a brokerage partner called Questrade. Over time, we've been partnered with them for a few years now. And after users started paying for Passive, they just decided, you know what, this is a great tool for all of our clients. Let's just give them access to it for free.
That's awesome.
And so now the broker pays for it. So yeah, like we can make basically money on both sides, either from users and integrations or by trying to like integrate and white label with brokerages.
I love that. That's really interesting. Um, Passive is it only available in Canada or is it available in the United States as well?
Yeah, so we've got a great partner in Canada, and what we think is that the same problem we're solving in Canada is applicable globally. If you're a DIY investor using spreadsheets, following a balanced fund investing strategy, um, we're not just limited to Canada. So we support Interactive Brokers, their global brokerage, TD Ameritrade, Alpaca, Tradier. We're going to be announcing support for Ally Invest pretty soon. So what we're doing is we're focusing on brokers that have open APIs, and that allows us to safely connect our software to their platforms to help their clients manage the money that they have on their platforms. And so what we do is we prioritize brokers with open APIs, and then we look for third-party partnerships like aggregation services that could help us get data into our platform from brokerages that don't have these open APIs. And so that's sort of what we're doing now to grow beyond Canada. And so yeah, we've been operating in the US for over a year now, and the growth's been pretty strong. Of course, like over 60% of our users are based in Canada, but you know,
that makes sense. That's where you started, right? Yes.
Yeah. But I think we're running into a bit more challenges than I would have anticipated. And I'll give you an example. Like in the US, like you guys have a ton of accounts. I thought Canadians had a lot of accounts. We've got a margin account, an RRSP, and a TFSA. Well, in the US, you guys have your Roth IRA, is your 401ks, your tradings, then the derivatives of IRAs as well. Anyway, there are just so many accounts. And then you've also got a lot more brokerages. And I know that the average US person tends to have more accounts tends to have multiple accounts at different brokerages. And so I don't think we anticipated just how many accounts people have. Yeah. And that's sort of why we started to look at aggregation services, because even if a large broker like TD Ameritrade has an open API, that's just one sliver or fraction of where someone holds their assets. They might have some of their assets at Robinhood, Schwab, M1 Finance. And so we're figuring that part out right now as we speak. So yeah.
That's interesting. It might be worth talking to another client of ours. We're producing a new show that's launching soon for a company called Blue Leaf. And depending on when you've heard this, you might actually be hearing the first episodes of that show. And they do a lot of that account aggregation for financial advisors, but they're already plugged into all the brokers as you're just describing there, right? Now, their clients are obviously financial advisors who are looking to have this service for their clients. But stands to reason that Passiv might be a good fit as well, because effectively you're kind of acting in the advisor's stead, helping the individual self-directed advisor do their thing. Is there the option for, let's just say I have an interesting portfolio idea. Like, hey, listen, I think this is the way you should manage your portfolio. Could I bring a portfolio to Passiv and let people subscribe to my portfolio, if you will, or implement it? Or do I have to go like, hey, I post my portfolio someplace else, and by the way, you can do this on Passiv? How's that work?
Yeah. So we just actually got done building a model portfolio feature. So basically this isn't announced yet. It'll be announced like a couple of days from now. Okay, so whenever this airs,
we don't have to hold on to this podcast forever. Yeah.
Yeah. So basically we allowed users to create model portfolios and share them with friends. And so let's say you created a meme stock balanced fund type portfolio. You can just take a link, share it with your friend, and they can implement it in Passiv like seamlessly. So yeah, totally doable.
That's cool. That's awesome. Doable. I like that idea. It's really, really cool. All right, shifting gears a little bit, and I like to do this for everybody who comes on the show, every founder who comes on the show, is to talk a little bit about like where you're going talent wise? I mean, you're growing, things are doing very well. Does somebody have to be named Brendan to join the firm? Because you seem to have like not only the two founders, but this, I saw like, and I was on LinkedIn, there's another team member named Brendan. I'm not sure if like, does that get me like up the scale in the interview process if my name is Brendan? Like, what are you looking for?
Yeah, it does help. No, I'm just kidding. We're actually looking for Brenda.
Get a Brenda, that would be good.
Yeah. No, honestly, you don't need to be Brendan or whatever. This is just all coincidence. So basically, our first employee was also named Brendan, but he was a personal friend of mine, so we brought him on. Really good guy and smart. So I wanted him on the team. But in terms of where we're going, like we've got our tech and talent figured out in terms of tech. Most of our team members are actual users of Passiv. And so when we formed Passiv, this is another thing. It's like we had a bunch of people coming out of woodwork saying, hey, I love this thing. I want to contribute. So we have team members that use the product. They love it. They want to make it better. They're committed to that. The problem we're having really is getting integrations and with marketing. And so as I mentioned, like we want to integrate with as many brokerages as possible in the US, and only a handful of brokerages have open APIs. And so the type of talent that I'm looking for, essentially someone that can help me get these integrations, and basically someone that can help me help our users. So that's sort of what I'm looking to add in the coming 12 months is someone that has these deep relationships to help us get these integrations with brokers. Because like aggregators are cool, they help you get data in, but the best user experience by far is when you have a direct integration with a broker and you can do things like place trades, do like real-time trades. In the single click of a button, a user can balance their portfolio, allocate cash, and you can't do that without a really seamless integration. Yeah. And that's sort of what I want to do.
I love it. That's it. So it's kind of like on in the realm of business development, right? So somebody has a lot of good relationships, somebody who knows how to go knock on a door, get you in the door to talk about why Passiv might be something that would really work well for whatever the brokerage is that you'd like to have on the platform. That's awesome. That's fantastic. Yeah. So let's talk about the future of Passiv, right? So I love that you're augmenting DIY investors, because there's nothing, as we've talked about this, and I think most DIY investors would agree, there's nothing wrong with managing your own money, right? But like there are some risks to doing it yourself, and you seem to be helping people mitigate those risks. And there's a huge market of DIY. Are there areas that you're thinking of expanding beyond that? Or are you just like, listen, man, like the global space for DIY investors is just so massive, we're going to stick here?
So I see the future. Like I see crypto as a new asset class. And basically, if you balance a portfolio of stocks, Passiv works for you. If you have crypto in your holdings, how do you balance between your Bitcoin, Ethereum, and that one Tesla stock that you have, or your VU ETF? Like, how do you do that? There's no tool right now on the market that allows you to hold crypto and traditional assets and balance them across your crypto exchange and your TD Ameritrade exchange. So basically, that's sort of what I see the future being, is like a multi-broker, multi-asset tool that just integrates with all of the platforms that you use. And that's sort of what we're doing right now. We've launched on Kraken. We're launching on UnoCoin, and there's a few other crypto exchanges in the play. And so while that's basically my vision. My vision is to allow people to balance the traditional and non-traditional assets in one spot easily at the click of a button, done. Beyond that, it's helping users to form the right investment habits. We fortunately, like, we had the GameStop fiasco. We had also the crash in last March. Our users, maybe it's just because of the demographic, they stuck to their investment plan. They didn't panic. They continued investing, and I kind of want to help users reinforce that. And the last thing I sort of see is like really like the future is us helping users to help others. They have friends, family members who are trying to invest, and I think that's something that we can do a better job at. Like you see what happened with Reddit and that whole GameStop fiasco, right? I mean, I kind of admire that community because they're trying to create change or make money or whatever, but it was just cool to see people like rally together for a common purpose. Yes, maybe some people got left holding the bag or whatever you want to call it, but I think there are elements about what we saw play out with this Wall Street Bets community that are applicable for us and our users as well, because like if you're trying to build long-term wealth, how do you get started? How do you become financially woke? Who helps you figure out what to invest in? Yes, you can go to a financial advisor, but most people trust their friends. They so like I think helping our users help others is something that's part of it has to be part of our future, because that's kind of like how we grew. Like Passive's growth in the first year or two was based mainly on users liking the product, sharing it with their friends, and being delighted that we took their feedback and improved upon it. And so it gave them the confidence to tell even more people about it. And so I think any future for Passive has to nurture that more.
Yeah, no, I agree. And I think one of the things that you kind of, we've talked a little bit about here, but I think you were hitting on there's an element of putting something in place that protects users against themselves a little bit, right? Like not nannying them too much, but giving them insights and data to know that, hey, don't trade yourself into oblivion, right? Because that happens. That is one of the biggest challenges with DIY investors when compared to professional money management over the years is on average, they woefully underperform professional money managers, right? And most of the reason why they underperform is not because they didn't pick the right investments. It's because they entered and exited the investments at the wrong time, right? They get overly excited when they see a big run up in a particular asset class and they're like, oh, that's awesome. I'm in, right? And then they get overly freaked out when the market starts to come down and they panic sell it, or they hold on until the thing just crashes and craters into the ground, right? So they do the opposite. They buy high and sell low, right? And so a solution like Passive has the ability to kind of take some of that emotional insanity off there and allow you to like, hey, this is a strategy you're working on. You can stick to this strategy and make money and also not kill yourself along the way.
Yeah, I think that's like, to give you an example, I don't know if you've used Passive or checked it out, but basically the way we've designed it is that it's like, compared to your broker's experience, when you log in, you see flashing numbers, you see red, you see green, it's just a bunch of stuff, you feel overwhelmed. What we're trying to do with Passive is keep things simple, objective, and calming. And so you would never see like a flashing, like, hey, you've lost 10% today or your investments are down. Because if you're investing for the long run and you're using index funds, you shouldn't really care about what's going on today. You should care about your goal. And so that's sort of what we're trying to do here at Passive is to not just help people with the tactical things, but give them that confidence to feel reassured that they're doing the right thing. And of course, having features that also help our users do some things that are on the periphery of passive investing, but not necessarily get directly into day trading and options. So for example, because options is a bit risky, we actually don't support our options in the platform. And so the type of users we're trying to find are people that are mostly index investors that have a few stock picks that are speculative versus like someone that's like an options trader. If you're an options trader, Passive isn't the platform for you, and rightly so, and we're fine with it. So anyway, I guess what I'm trying to say is that like we know the user that we're trying to serve. We understand that people level up along the way because you don't always just stay as a passive investor. But for us, there's a line that we will not cross.
Yeah.
And that line basically is getting into day trading. That's just not something we're gonna ever do.
That's fantastic. I'm glad it's such a smart move to know your lane and stay in your lane for a while, especially when you're an early stage company, right? It's you're still only a few years old. There is oftentimes an urgency to, maybe we should try doing some other stuff or serving some other thing or adding other asset classes like options that, maybe some of your users are like, hey, can we try these options thing? But knowing your lane and knowing what you're trying to accomplish and who you're trying to accomplish it for is a really, really smart thing for any company, but particularly a company at an early stage, especially one that's getting traction like Passiv. We're getting close to wrapping it up here, but one of my favorite questions to end on is your ask for the listener. Anybody who comes on the show or anybody who presents at the SoFin event that we have here at South by Southwest every year, if you're going to get on stage, you should have an ask. You should have something you want of the audience, right? You're here for a reason, right? Not just to chat with Mike Langford. Oh, by the way, that's awesome. Come on, really. But there must be something that you're looking to accomplish, or maybe the community can help. Just kind of like your Reddit community, but maybe this community can help you with. What is your ask of the audience?
Okay, I have two asks. My first ask is for you to visit passiv.com. Try it, give us feedback. As I mentioned, we're slowly breaking into the US market, and getting more users in the US giving us feedback helps us a long way. And so basically visit our website at passiv.com. That's passiv.com. And if you do passiv.com/SoFin, SoFin, we'll give you a discount for 50% off for 2 years to try Passiv Elite. And that allows your listeners to give us feedback and feel confident that they can realize the benefit from that feedback while we improve, or maybe it works for them and it's great. So hopefully it's the latter. The last thing I would ask for is, as I mentioned earlier, we're always looking to integrate with platforms. And so if there's anyone listening that can help us get integrations with some of these larger brokerages, we're always interested in speaking. So please reach out if you can help us get integrations, or if you have a platform that you feel we should integrate with, because we're open. And so, I just want to leave with those two asks.
Wonderful. This is fantastic. Well, Brendan, the original Brendan, really fantastic having you on the show, buddy. It's really been a pleasure on this side. I'm glad we finally got together. Thanks, sir.
Thanks so much. Cheers. Bye-bye, everyone.
Thank you very much for listening to and or watching this episode of the SoFin Podcast. It's always fantastic to have you with us. Huge props and thanks to my man, Brendan Lee Young, as well, from Passiv, for joining me. Love his energy. Love what they're building at Passiv. He and the team of Brendan's absolutely crushing it. Maybe sometime soon, now that I know about you, but I'm double vaxxed, baby, and ready to get my in-person gathering on. I'm coming up on a month of being double vaxxed, that second Pfizer shot. So no mask for me unless it's absolutely required now. I'm getting out there, socializing, looking forward to getting our SoFin in-person events back on track. So that next year's South by, it's going to happen. I'm also working on something where there might be something really cool happening in the fall as well. So stay tuned on that one. And hopefully the Brendans will be there, right? I'll just get a shirt that says, not named Brendan, but I know the Brendans, or something like that. All right. Hope you're having a wonderful day. We will see you next time on the SoFin Podcast. See ya. Bye.